Hey everybody, it is, let me check the date here. Okay, it's September 16th, 2011. This is my latest vlog. Normally I don't do them so frequently, but some ideas sprang to me last night, so I figured I'd get them done today before I go and get ready to work my double shift tomorrow. First thing that not so much something I wanted to talk about, just something I figured I'd bring up. The idea came to me from a friend of mine on Facebook that made a comment. In short, WWE, I think, needs to stop with this whole anti-bullying, be a star thing, because, frankly, I think it's kind of ridiculous because take a look at WWE and Vince McMahon's business practices and tell me if that doesn't spell bully to me, or you for that matter. But I think it's just kind of silly that a company like WWE is doing or is attempting to do some kind of anti-bullying campaign. Because Lord knows, I'm sure plenty of people will say that Vince McMahon's probably one of the biggest bullies in this business. And I just think the concept in and of itself, in general, is kind of silly. Frankly, it's kind of an example of, I think, how America is becoming really soft, really weak and pathetic as far as things like that, because they're saying, don't be a bully," as if that's really going to solve the problem. And they're trying to tell people that, if you are being bullied, go to an authority figure or this and that. But that's not going to solve the problem, because kids today aren't very bright, and you try to tell them, don't be a bully, blah blah blah. They're not going to listen. They seem to have hardly enough sense to care about holding a job. And plus, as I said, it's growing up. You have to forgive the sounds, traffic and all that tonight. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the country is frankly getting soft because they're expecting people. Expecting kids who are being bullied to go tell a parent, tell a teacher, this, that, and the other. And that's not really going to solve anything, because all you're doing, aside from teaching kids how to avoid dealing with a problem, is you're also teaching kids to be rats, snitches. And where I come from, you snitch, you disappear. I'm not going to say that if you rat on somebody you die, but you turn up missing. Look at Jimmy Hoffa. So I think that whole thing needs to stop. People need to start teaching their kids to stand up for themselves. They need to teach kids to stop being wimps, basically. Because I'm sure there's people who disagree with me on this, but I'm sure there's plenty of other people who agree with me on this, that back in my day, if somebody was bullying you, damn flies, damn cars, what can I do? It used to be, back in my day, if you were being bullied, I don't remember my parents, or my mother I should say specifically, because she was the one who pretty much raised me. I don't remember my mother ever telling me, if you're being bullied, you should tell somebody. No. I remember when I was a kid, my mom enrolled me in martial arts. I took karate as a little kid, like a lot of people did when they were young, I'm sure. My generation. And that taught me to defend myself. It taught me to stand up for myself. And there were situations growing up where I was not bullied per se, because it didn't happen all the time, but there were kids that would pick on me for one reason or another. Kids that would start shit with me. You'll have to pardon my language. And kids that thought they could mess around with me, but that's not how I was raised. I was raised to stand up for myself and have self-respect. So if a kid started messing with me, I would tell him, leave me alone. The minute he put his hands on me, then it's up. I think we got some rain coming, so hopefully it'll hold off until I'm done. If a kid started messing with me, I gave him several warnings to leave me alone. And eventually it didn't work. I'm just going to move. This is just a move for me. I'm going to move this just a little bit because, frankly, looking at this in the camera, it looks like I'm bald because I got the trees behind me. It's all black, so call me vain. But like I was saying, if a kid was bullying me, picking on me, I warned him several times to leave me alone. But once I got physical right back. All it takes, bust a kid in the nose if he's bugging you. He puts his hands on you and tries to rough you up. You bust him in the nose. You crack him in the jaw. One time, and that's it. Situation done. That's how it was for me. Somebody started picking on me and trying to mess with me, trying to act like he's better than me. The minute he started getting physical, what did I do? I popped him one. And there are some times where some other kid messed with me. I punched him right in the face. Not only did I freaking knock him back, but I broke his glasses. I'm sure people will hear me say that. Say, "Oh, I broke some kid's glasses by punching him." And they're gonna think I was the bully. No, this kid was a bully. Well, he probably would be classified a bully today, but he happened to wear glasses. Wearing glasses doesn't mean anything, in my opinion. So, and he never bothered me again. A couple other people started messing with me. I'd mess with them right back. Like De Niro said, somebody messes with me, I'm gonna mess with him. So it got to the point where enough people messed with me, enough people learned their lesson, and word spread that I wasn't somebody to be screwed around with. I wasn't a person who would allow themselves to be picked on or bullied. I don't know if that necessarily was the case, that word spread around school and this and that, but it got to a point that by the time I got into high school, nobody bothered me. Nobody tried picking on me. Nobody started messing with me at all, and everything was fine. So maybe the word did spread that I wouldn't allow myself to be picked on or messed with. Or maybe it's just the fact that by the time you get to high school, you start thinking a bit differently and you start, being mature. So, but either way, no one ever messed with me. I haven't been in a fight. I probably haven't been in a fight since before high school. And that includes out in the streets, And I'm proud of that. As much as I wouldn't mind getting in a fight once every now and then, as bizarre as that may seem, it's nice to know that you can take care of yourself if you have to. So, frankly, that's what parents today, in my opinion, and apparently other people's opinions, needs to be done. Instead of teaching your kids, go to a teacher, go to whoever, if you're being bullied, and have them help resolve the situation. No. What you parents need to do, I'm sure there's people out there may see this. You may have kids, and there's probably some people out there watching this that are thinking about having kids. And if you don't think this way already, let me tell you now. Teach your kids to defend themselves, whether you enroll them in martial arts or if you know anything about boxing or wrestling or this or that. Teach them. Teach your kids. Teach your kids it's not right to be bullied. If somebody is bullying you or picking on you, you have every right to defend yourself. But of course not until they get physical with you, because otherwise it makes you look like the bully. But going to a teacher, going to the principal, that's not going to solve anything. Plain and simple. If you deal with a bully directly, you show him you're not going to be messed around with. You eventually will be left alone. And that's what you parents need to teach your kids today. Because from what I've been seeing, and obviously the fact that they have to do this whole be a star promotional thing, obviously it's not being done. So if you're out there, if you've got kids or you're planning on having kids, teach your kid that when it comes to bullying, when it comes to other kids messing with your kids, you tell your kids it's okay to fight back. regardless of what anyone says in today's weak, soft society, if someone's messing with you, if someone's messing with your kid, you tell your kid it's okay to fight back. Because if you hit a person once, hard enough, they're going to leave you alone. Okay, bloodstains wash out, knuckles heal, but your pride and your reputation is forever. So, I guess that's about it on that subject. Hey, so if anyone wants to leave comments or leave their own viewpoints, feel free to to hit like, unlike, share, subscribe, blah blah blah. Leave whatever comments you like down there. I'll read them. I'd be more than happy to hear your viewpoints. I'll debate the subject up and down in an orderly and mature fashion. But I'm not going to start. I'm not going to flame and troll and whatever all those other internet terms people use nowadays. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. But I will defend my viewpoint. So that's enough of that. Before I start rambling on that subject, I go on to another subject. It's something that's been kind of stewing over. Ooh, looks like it is going to start raining already, so I'm going to move the computer in a little bit. Okay. This subject is the subject of wrestling belts. For a while, I've been a member of one of those internet forums where people talk about wrestling titles, especially people that like to collect them. People that collect replica belts, people that actually spend thousands of dollars and wait for like 2 years plus to get a real belt from guys like guys like Reggie Parks and the people that have learned from him. Dave Milliken, that's his name. Dave Milliken, J-Mar, Joe Marshall. All these different companies out there, especially the top companies that make wrestling championships and make them available for people. Oops. Just don't rain. Please, God, don't rain on my computer while I'm doing this. Now, for a while, especially when I was younger and the whole concept of buying replica belts became this big popular thing, I thought it was really cool. No two ways about it. I thought it was awesome to be able to have a replica of your favorite belts, like the Winged Eagle and the Reggie Intercontinental belt, classics. Excuse me. But then, as I got older and as I got into wrestling, my interest in the subject did kind of wane. Especially once I actually started. After I won a couple of titles finally. I started to think differently about the subject. Now, if you buy a couple of belts because you like the way they look in particular, and you want to hang them on your wall as little display pieces, that's fine. But when you make a major hobby out of it, and you collect every single replica belt that's out there, and then you start ordering and collecting real belts, that's when I think it gets a little crazy. And if anybody wants to know, you can go to belttalk.com, belttalk.com, and you can see all these people that go back and forth about collecting real belts and replica belts. Ooh, I don't want this in the rain. And you'll see that some of these people, they're very snobby, very elitist. Why I continue to go on that website, I don't know. Probably for my own amusement, because I'm twisted like that. But I've started to become a believer in that you shouldn't really be. I feel, because I think it's kind of the old school thing, in that you shouldn't be owning wrestling titles if you haven't earned them. Now, I'm sure there are probably some belt marks out there, especially the real snobby ones. Okay, motorcycle just went by. Those real snobby belt marks that'll probably say stuff like, "Oh, I spent $2,000 on a belt. I waited for 2.5 years. I earned that belt. I earned the money to buy it. Yada yada yada." But there once was a time where the only time you ever held a belt in your hands, or even saw one, was when you were given a belt by a promotion. You busted your hump, and you earned it. Nowadays, You know, any schmuck who's got 2-3 grands and a couple of years to wait can have a belt. But that just doesn't really do it for me. So I guess that's kind of all I have to say about that. Especially, you know, you really should check out the website I mentioned, belttalk.com. It's some of the people out there are just mind-boggling. They're real snobby, elitist. The list goes on and on of adjectives, and it really baffles me to think that these guys think they have the right to have such an attitude because, oh, I own 12 or 13 real belts. You know, the real leather strap 4mm plates, deeply etched, handcrafted by Reggie Parks or Dave Milliken, yada yada yada. And they think, that's enough reason for me to think I'm better than other people. But newsflash, if any of you are watching it, you're wrong. So, because the thing that I find hilarious is that just about everybody who's on that website, as far as I can figure, is not a wrestler. So what do they know about earning a belt? And while we're talking about the subject of belts, I just figured I'd kind of pull this out right here. This, while I'm on the subject of wrestling belts, on a kind of a different topic, this here, of course, is the Primo's Hardcore Wrestling 303 Division Championship, which I won, nay, I earned. Remember that word, belt marks, earned, in mid-June of this year, in some serious, heavy duty matches. I was given this belt after 2 years of working for Primo's Hardcore Wrestling and having proved myself that I was worthy to be a champion in that promotion. Yeah, it's just a little indie promotion like so many others across this country, but still, this belt right here shows that the people that I worked for decided that I deserved it. They decided that I was worthy of representing that company as their champion. And that's where, hold on. And for some reason, I decided to close the grill. I don't know why. And it's getting pretty dark, so hopefully I'll make the rest of this quick. Wrestling titles, unfortunately, don't mean what they used to. You take a look at that Belt Talk website, and you'll see people talking about how people have changed over the years in regards to wrestling titles. They're not treated the way they used to be. They'll talk about how WWE goes through X amount of belts, month after month, year after year. They'll talk about how they've got damn scooter. They talk about how they have 3 different belts for each champion. They've got the HD belt, which I think is fucking ridiculous, but that's just me. They've got the HD belt. They've got the house show belt, which obviously isn't as nice. And then there's the belt which the actual wrestlers carry around, but they don't really carry it around. I'm sure any WWE wrestler will tell you they don't actually carry the belt around. They put it in their bag or their suitcase when they travel, and that's it. And a lot of times that belt that they carry around, as far as I know, from what I've heard from some people, are replicas. And I've actually seen that some of the belts used on TV are replicas, most notably by The Miz when he was WWE champion. This is just a shame. Unfortunately, wrestling titles don't mean what they used to. And like I said, a lot of times you'll see a wrestler, he will be walking around with his belt, but it'll be in his bag, in his suitcase, or this or that. Alright, I'm starting to ramble. The days where you'd see a wrestler actually carrying his belt around, the days where you'd see Ric Flair walking around with the NWA World title in his hands in the airport and other public places, those days are gone. And unfortunately, it's even worse on the indie scene, because yes, unfortunately, it's at the point where most indie belts, I'm sure if you look at this one, you can see what I'm talking about. Most indie belts like this one are typically replica belts. You can even see it right. You can kind of see it. You can see the little logo. You can see the copyright engraving and such on the back. Most indie wrestling belts are typically replica belts that are repainted, or they're a mosquito. They're either repainted or they're covered with stickers or graphic labels, because stickers are just cheap and tacky. They're covered with really nice graphic decals and things of that nature, because not a lot of indie promotions can spare the money to actually make a belt, to have a series belt made. And even if they did, most indie promotions, they don't take the pride that wrestlers and wrestling promotions used to when it came to belts. So of course they figure, why waste money on a belt that these indie guys, are just going to wreck. They're just going to throw them around. They're not going to care what happens to them because they're not theirs, which is understandable. So, and when you got belts like, when people use belts like these, replicas that have been repainted or covered over with decals and whatnot, of course wrestlers are going to think, these really don't mean anything. Well, not really that. I don't want to go that far. But they will say that, I don't have to worry about getting them all messed up because it's not that expensive. It's not that big a deal. Which unfortunately is part of which is what has contributed, I say, to the decline of what these belts stood for. And I'm one of the few people that tries to change that. Another guy, the only other person I can think of that comes to mind is Mike Quackenbush. I've seen pictures of him carrying 4, 5, 6 different belts. Yeah, they're all indie belts. They're done the same way, repainted, or they're covered with decals and whatnot to denote the wrestling promotion that the belt stands for. I've seen pictures of him, wearing those belts, carrying them around, with pride. But unfortunately, there's not enough of that, and I try to do my little bit to change that. And that's why whenever a Primo show rolls around, and it's time for me as the great Raiden to defend my 303 title, what on the day of the show, what will you see me do? From the minute that I leave my house to the minute that I get to the venue, leave the venue, go home, this belt will literally be in my hands. I will walk into a venue with this belt on my shoulder, my bag in my other hand. I will carry this belt with pride to whatever building that I'm wrestling in, especially where I'm defending this belt representing Primos, and I will walk out of the building the exact same way. I will go home, and I'll take this belt. I'll put it on top of my DVD display case where I display my other championship. It's right there in the middle of the living room. Every single person who walks in the door in my house will see this belt, and of course they'll ask me about it, and I will say with pride where I got this belt from and what it stands for. And unfortunately, you don't see a whole lot of that, especially, oh god, there's still a little bit of residue from my poison mist on one of the plates, but that, I kind of lost my train of thought there for that millionth time. But that's the one thing that separates me from a lot of other people in this business, whether it's in the indies or even in Impact Wrestling and WWE. I can't vouch for other people, whether it's other guys that I wrestle with or it's guys that I watch on TV. I can't say for certain whether they actually carry their belt around with them or they simply just stick it in their bag or their brief or their suitcase. But the one thing I can say is I take great pride in this belt because of everything that I said previously as to how I got it, why I got it, and I take great pride in the fact that somebody trusted me enough to represent a company as its champion and I can only hope that I do my best to lead by example and other people pick up on that, and hopefully in that way it'll kind of start to change things in this business overall. Sure, I'm only one man and there's only so much I can do, but I like to think that even that little bit can go quite a ways. So before I start to ramble even more and my dog is barking, Peanut, be quiet. So I guess I'm gonna probably sign off for now until I do my next vlog, which most likely will be after next weekend, the weekend of the 23rd, when I get back from Northern Outlaw Wrestling up in North Dakota. So until then, see y'all later.